Shelley is saying, want to try it for a few years, and it was a perfect way to do so. I agree. I think it's kind of fun. I love doing workshops and taking workshops and giving them both. And sometimes you just have a chance to see something, maybe you're not going to be making leaves, maybe you want to do something else with it, but at least it gives you a chance to play around with it. Why don't we start with you, Molly, if you want to give us a little quick intro as to who you are and what you do, and where you are.
Well, I'm Molly. I'm from Cincinnati, and I am a co-owner of Rock Paper Store, which is the paper that you all received in your kits. I am an artist as well, so this is all kind of fun to meet other artists and hopefully everyone enjoys working with the paper.
I am Wendy Bale. I'm a visual artist in Western New York. I live near Jamestown, which is the I would say the bottom left corner of New York, or the west coast of New York, if you like. And I live in the woods and spend a lot of time observing nature, which comes into play with my art a lot. I work as a paper artist and also do drawings and occasionally paint. That's a little snippet of what I do. I'm going to not go into it too deeply tonight because I mostly want to get you guys started working on your leaves as quickly as possible. So we're gonna try and dive right into this as fast as we can. And now I'd like to introduce Jerry.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I'm the tech host for tonight, and I'm just kind of, monitoring folks in the chat. And I live in New York City. I also am a paper artist. I'm also a member of the Guild of American Papercutters, and as is Wendy. And I'm thrilled by rock paper. It's one of my favorite things. So I'm very excited to see this tonight.
Thank you, Jerry. You're an integral part of the team tonight, and Molly and I both really, really appreciate you being here and helping us out.
Yes, we do.
Excited.
So let's spotlight Molly a minute here and let her talk a little bit about the paper that we're going to be working with tonight, so you can learn a little bit about what it is.
It's made from calcium carbonate, which is why we call it rock paper. So it's basically made from rocks. Rock paper is it's waterproof and it's acid free, and it's mildew and mold resistant, so it's going to last a long time, and it's also insect resistant, so there's no bugs are going to eat it, and you'll have it forever. So once you make your leaves, you'll be able to put them outside if you want, or do what Wendy did and put them in a vase of water, or I mean the possibilities are endless. The color is actually not printed on the paper. It's a part of our process, and it's a pigment that's infused into the paper, which allows us to also put different colors on the front or the back. And that's why some of your sheets have, different colors on one side or the other.
I know that I was actually at a GAP meet, a Guild of American Papercutters crafty hour the other day, and somebody asked the question. I was talking about we were going to be doing this workshop, and they asked the question about the whether or not you could paint on the rock paper. And I mentioned that I had been using a watercolor pencil and had done pretty well with that. But the question was, would acrylic paints work, or any other kind of like inks or things like that? So can you answer that question?
Yes, you can paint on them with acrylics. I have not tried oil paints, but acrylics work, gouache paint works, watercolor works, but it works differently than what you're used to, like on watercolor paper, because it does not absorb the water. So you kind of have to manipulate it a little bit differently. But yeah, inks, like alcohol inks, they work really great on it. markers like Sharpie markers, they work really good. There really aren't a whole lot of things that I've tried that haven't worked. Of course, I'm always looking for people to, tell me their experiments, but I've had a lot of success with it. The only thing is you can't put it through a printer, like your office printer. The ink will not stay on it.
I have mine taped down. You don't need to do that. That's just to keep me from wandering, so I stay in camera. But the first portion of the detailed instructions how to do this mostly talk about how to to research your subject. So you've got starting out with your real leaf, which, as you can see, this is a real leaf. It doesn't dry very well. It gets all crunkly and it'll disintegrate pretty quickly. So it's kind of one of the nice things about making your own leaf is that you'll have that for a long time and it's not going to get all, it's not going to just disintegrate. Use a photocopier to make a pattern or use the ones that I provided for you here. And don't try to do it with the real leaf because it's lumpy. And even when it's fresh, it doesn't really work to use it that way. You really kind of need to do a photocopy. So hopefully you guys all printed out page 3. And if you didn't, then you can just do a freehand. You can certainly do a freehand one. You don't have to follow a template, but this page 3 is going to be an important thing to have if you need the template. You've got your paper that came in your kit. I'm going to be using the yellow sheet. You can use whatever you want. I just think Gingko leaves are so often yellow when they're in the fall, so I'm going to be using yellow. And I'm going to be using a pair of scissors eventually, and I'm going to be using an embossing tool. And if you prefer, you can use a knife. If you're a knife cutter and don't like using scissors, you can use a knife and a board like that. So we have couple pieces of tape. I'm using black masking tape. It's kind of clunky and ugly, but it doesn't matter. It works. And I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. So that's why I'm using that. But you could use Scotch tape or masking tape or whatever you want. We're going to start out with this Gingko leaf. And we're just going to tape the paper onto. And you kind of want to conserve it, so don't go in the middle because then you won't be able to use as much. So get it in a spot where it's going to be pretty close to the edge. And you're going to make sure that you're on the foam core, because the purpose of the foam core is to provide something soft to press against when you're embossing your leaf. Now, if you don't have a piece of foam core, you can also use an old magazine or a catalog or something like that. That works pretty well. If you tried to do it just on your desk or on a table, you would find that it didn't really push in. You don't have any space to do that. And the mail service wasn't real kind to my foam core, but none of that matters. I mean, you can run over those lines. It's not a problem. If you have a hole poked in your foam core, that can be a problem because you'll kind of fall into it. So some of my foam core, I use a lot of black foam core, and I don't know if it shows up. You can see some of the impressions in it. It gets pretty beat up, and it's okay. It's not, this doesn't have to be perfect. That's what I'm saying. We're going to start out now that we've selected our paper and we've got our pattern on top. We've taped it on here. Now we're going to trace the basic details of that. And you should be able to see your pattern through the paper. Now, if you can't, you can, if the piece of paper that you chose is too dark, you can do it this way. if it's too opaque, you can do it that way as well. And then you just press through following the lines like that. But because that's one of the things I like about the rock paper is a lot of it is pretty translucent. So that helps with being able to trace it on there. So that's sort of your choice, whatever way is going to work best for you. Hopefully you can kind of see that on the Zoom, but it won't matter because I'm going to be off of that pretty quickly. So we're just going to trace around it using probably the finer end. These embossing tools come with a variety of different ball sizes on the end of them. I like the finer ones typically. Some of them are almost so fine that they will cut right into the paper, so you don't want that much. But the whole purpose of this leaf that we're making right now is to get you guys used to how much pressure you can put on there. So you don't have to put a ton of pressure in, but you can also vary it. And I'm going to have you just go through all around the outline of the outside of the leaf and then follow those basic lines that I've got in there. Don't draw in all the little ones just yet, but just get the basic like 1, 2, 3, 4 lines across there. And then at that point, you don't really need to use the pattern anymore. You're able to see that. You should be able to see the indent that you're getting there. Now, if you flip it over and you see that you're not seeing it very well, you're not getting that indent in there very well, then go back in and just make it a little bit stronger. And it helps if you do your experimenting with how hard you can push on the outside, because then if you push through, it's no big deal because you're going to cut that anyway. But really get a sense, this is the first time you've embossed rock paper, really press on there and see how it behaves when you're pressing down there with that tool. Now, if you find yourself getting, like you start pushing and it feels like it's pushing, like it's rippling it up, just come back in from the other direction. You'll see that more when we're actually doing the center of it. But so now we've got this basic outline. I like to flip it over and you definitely should be able to see that now. I've pressed in pretty hard so that it would show up well. I'm going to get the tape off of here so I don't end up with tape on my sleeve. All right, now referring back to, I mean, you can keep your little reference there to remind you, but at this point, just use these guides as your ideas to where your lines need to go, because you want to go somewhat parallel to those lines. And the reason why I like to put in some basic lines is because that gives you an opportunity to establish the direction that those are in, so you don't like start going this way and then all of a sudden you're like having to catch up and then go more at a different angle real quickly. So it's a little more even this way. So starting down here at the base of the leaf, just start putting in your little ribs. And this is why I chose a ginkgo leaf to begin with here tonight, because it doesn't really have, it's a very old leaf. These trees are some of the oldest there are. So it's very basic. It doesn't have a lot of complicated structure to it. It's pretty basic. It just has these veins that come out. Now see, I went through there as I pressed a little bit too hard, and you may do that too. And you'll notice in this leaf here, I actually put a hole in there purposely. So that's okay. Real leaves have holes in them. And like I said, this is just for us to get some practice on how you get a sense for how hard can you go. And you may also notice that it might work better with the other side. So you might flip it over. In my case, this is a really narrow one. So I'm going to keep it on this.
I had a question about embossing on the white versus the yellow side. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, well, I'm doing this on the white side because I want the yellow side to be my final side. I want this to be the side that we're going to see. So when you see when I flip it over, it's actually embossed, which means it sticks up. And if it were down like this, it's debossed. So I'm actually pushing it from the white side so that the yellow side will be the puffy side, if that makes sense. So thank you, Jerry. Hope that answered the question. I'm going to switch to a little less pointy one. And if you don't have an embossing tool for some reason and you lose it, or you want to try something different, you can use a dead pen, you know, one that doesn't have any ink left in it. That works pretty well too. If you get like a ballpoint pen that has a nice ball on the end of it, and, you know, nice tip that isn't too pointy, that works pretty well. So now here I'm going to show you something else too, is that you see how it's starting to get a little bit of shape to it. You can flip it over, go back to the yellow side, and then start putting some lines in on that side. And then you get those sort of undulations. But you can also add those later, because you can go from one side to the other and pop them in different directions. So I kind of like going back and forth, but I like getting the whole thing kind of done in one direction. Because for one thing, you'll also notice that it will make it lighter. So it kind of accentuates those lines you're putting in there because they are kind of whitish. They're getting a little bit, some of the color of the paper is being pushed out so much that the color of the core of the paper is starting to show. So then you'll notice that this stem, which actually isn't the stem, if you, I bothered to do this so that I would remember the petiole of the leaf, because the stem is actually the branch where the leaf is coming off of. But this portion I have left really fat. And the reason why I do that is because you're going to want to squeeze this up like this when we go to shape it. It's going to want to get that shape, and this will give it a little bit more structure rather than this having this really skinny floppy thing. You'll have something with a little bit more structure if you let it be a little bit fatter. And a side note here, if you want, you can leave the bottom part of it really fat. And even if you wanted to use like a paper punch and put a little hole in there, I've done that on some of the ones that I was planning to display underwater. We're going to just mark in the inside of that petiole right there. Okay, so what I'd like to do at this point is go back on the opposite side, or, you know, go back to your yellow side, and then get your outside edge one more time. Just go around that outside edge and put some little details in it, kind of put some little jiggies in there to get it to have a little bit more natural organic shape, so it's not too mechanically shaped. There. So you should have something that looks something like that. Let's just move on and do another one, and then we'll cut them out at the same time. All right, so just set aside your ginkgo leaf. Like I said, that one was really just a practice one. Don't worry about it. We had a magnificent fall here. And so I have picked up a bunch of leaves and then just photocopied them. I have chosen this lovely kind of khaki green. And I noticed that it's got some interesting sort of light things going on here. And this paper actually has red on the other side, which, oh, kind of looks like that. Maybe I'll do the red side. Kind of looks like my original, doesn't it? So, you know, the papers that we have here, some of them have colors on two sides, some are just on one. Like I said before, that's a good opportunity to play around with paints and things if you want it to be that way. Otherwise, a lot of the time, the way things are displayed, they don't really need to have color on both sides. But we're going to do this one the other way. So we'll have it's good to show you both ways to do this. When you're going through the paper, and maybe some of you already are doing it this way and you've seen that. When you're going through the paper, you have to press a little bit harder because you're also working through that paper. So once again, we're just gonna go around the outside of the leaf, the outline of the leaf. And I wanted you to hopefully pick a leaf that has a little bit more complicated structure for the second one. And I'll definitely slow down on this one because it does take a little bit more time to go around all the little nooks and crannies that you have with an oak leaf or a maple leaf. So after you've gone around the outside of it, you're going to just do the basic ones. You don't have to do all the little tiny veins that are in there. You're just going to do sort of the ones that look like they're going toward the nodes of the leaf. And you'll notice that's one of the reasons why I put this information in here about the vein arrangement, whether it's alternating or opposite, because that's a good way to identify what kind of a plant it is. And usually if one part of it is like that, all of them are. Like if the veins alternate, then usually the branches do too. It's kind of important, I think, to make sure that that's correct. So you don't want to like start out alternating and then have them line up, because then it will just not look as natural. Now, I'm not going to do all of the little itty bitty veins. I can see them on this photograph, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the basic ones. And then I'm going to take that off of there again, leaving it off to the side so that I can kind of refer to it. And you'll be able to see that you can see your lines and see them a little bit better on this side, which is kind of nice because that's the side we're primarily going to be working on, because I've decided in this case, I want the red to be the main side. So I'm going to be working on the opposite side of this. So now this way of doing it is a little bit different because you don't just have a bunch of individual lines to do. For this portion of it, what I'd like you to do is sort of section off the different parts of the leaf. And you can go through and section them all off if you like, but I find that I get kind of lost and confused when I do it that way. So my recommendation is to just do one section at a time. So you're going to do kind of like a little, well, if it were sewing, that would be a seam allowance that goes around the each section of your leaf. So if it's a maple leaf that you're doing, then you would be going around like a section like this. Okay. So in this case, on this oak leaf, I've got that section. Now I'm going to fill that in with marks. And in this case, I'm going to use sort of circular marks. I like to do little tiny circles, and you kind of start out a little soft and then get a little bit more pressure as you work on it. And this is what that's going to do. You're going to see this is going to pop out of there, and that's going to form your texture. You know, this leaf had a lot of texture to it. It also had changes in color, but because we only have the one color we're working with, unless of course you add color to it, but you can get sort of a sense of the leaf having more variety of textures and colors by actually adding depth and texture to it. And by doing that, you're kind of fooling the eye into thinking that it's more, even though an actual leaf is not that textured in terms of it doesn't have that much embossment on it. But if you just did it flat, it wouldn't have that sense of the texture that you get from doing it with the embossment. So if you take each section of your leaf and then fill it in, I have done a couple of things recently, and sometimes I really like just kind of doing little squiggly circles, but you can also do straight lines, or you can do concentric lines, which would be like if you have your section and then you just make another line inside it that's a little bit smaller, kind of thinking of a contour map, you know, how those contour maps go like that. It sort of looks like wood grain when you do it this way, which I actually kind of like, but I'll show you what it looks like. That's another way to do it. So you could do scribbly lines, you can do the little contour lines, or another way to do it, you know, everybody has their own mark making. That's the thing about artists. We all kind of have our own way we do things. You could do straight up and down lines like this, whatever kind of marks feel comfortable to you, and give you a result that you like. This is just straight lines like that, like I was drawing grass on there. So, and if you don't like what you did, you can go back in and kind of do the little scribbly circle lines on top of it. Because I didn't really like those lines very well. So I'm going to just do the scribbly ones on top of it. And it kind of fills that in. So those are some different options of different kind of lines you can make, whatever you are comfortable with, the little circles. So that's kind of my go-to. I'm going to go right back to that. And you can always experiment on a little scrap of the paper. If you don't want to ruin the leaf you're working on, you can come off to the side and play around with that and see if you come up with a mark making that you like. If you want to experiment. And it doesn't have to be real perfect, because you can always come back in again. And, you know, once the line has been made, it's made, but you can kind of go over it. And you can come back on the opposite side if you like and get some texture into it from there too. And I really like it when it starts kind of getting a little bit, it's so elastic that it will kind of get little puckers and things in it, which to me make it look all that much more interesting.
So Wendy, I have a question for you.
Let's hear it.
How did you figure out that you could do this with the rock paper?
Well, you know, it's funny that you ask, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I can't even remember exactly how it happened. I imagine I was probably drawing on it and discovered that if I pressed too hard while drawing, that I would end up with an embossment. But I probably just made, you know, lemonade out of those lemons. And now I don't usually draw on it that much. I pretty much prefer to emboss it. So yeah, that's probably how that happened. Because it you know, that it can be, I suppose you could look at it as a disadvantage if you didn't want to have the embossment. Like if you were just trying to do like a pencil drawing or something, and you wanted your paper to stay pristine, you better not be too heavy-handed.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So I guess yeah. But I was actually thinking about that just the other day. I was like, I don't know. I've been doing it for quite a while, a number of years. How long have you been in business, Molly?
Well, let's see. I guess officially since 2019, like
Yeah.
the end of 2019.
I
So
I must have bumbled into your product like
I think
pretty
you were one
soon.
of our first customers. You were close to one of the first. You
That's
tend to
funny.
remember the first ones for sure.
Well, I remember seeing something on, social media, somebody saying, "Oh, I did this and I made it out of rock paper." And I was like, "Rock paper? What is that?" So I was definitely um interested in it. I love every kind of paper. There pretty much isn't a paper I don't like. I really like having lots of different papers to play with. So
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like to definitely push about it is that rock paper isn't supposed to replace what you already use. It's just another tool that you can use for a different type of project or, not every paper will emboss like this, that's for sure. So, this could
right.
be, it's just that's what I think is the best thing about it is it's an extra thing that you can add to your collection.
And you know that we paper artists like to collect paper. I
Y-
have
You know,
drawers and drawers of it.
it's definitely an artist thing where there's like a tendency to hoard, all these different tools and oh gosh, walking into an art store, that's just,
Oh, no, I
that's
know it can be dangerous.
yes, it can.
But yeah, I always hate that when you have a paper and you can't remember what it is. It's like, what is this sheet? Where did I get this? And I don't know what it is, but I want more of it, but I don't know what it is.
Um,
Those sheets become very precious to me.
Someone asked if you could talk about the other things that you have embossed on this paper.
Yes, I have a stack of stuff over here to my right that I'm going to show you in a minute. So, yeah, I'm gonna show more of that. I wanted to, I really love taking workshops, but I don't like taking workshops where I have to listen a long time before I get my hands right on it. I really want to get my hands busy. So, so that's why it's important to me to get you guys going on this. So I will definitely show you that stuff as we go on later. But I wanted to get everybody with the tool in their hands and start playing around with this paper and see what it does. Now you can see all those veins in there, right? And then you go back, you flip it back over to the other side and go around your outside again, because you want to really accentuate that edge. You're going to be cutting it, so it's not real important, but it is a little bit important because you want to be able to have a good line to follow when you go to cut that out. Now that said, you don't have to cut it out. This is a sheet that I was intending to cut out, but I thought it was kind of pretty when it was done, so I thought, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. If you want to adjust how these go in and out, if you like them all poofed up like this, you can do that. But if you wanted to have some of them, like maybe do all of them on one side pushed down, so you'd have, so think of it as like a bas-relief sculpture. So you'd have, maybe this is the side that's closest to the viewer, and then the other side is further away from the viewer. So to accentuate that, you could have the other half of the leaf actually pressed down from the other side. So go back and forth, play around with it, and try different methods of getting the effects you want. And you can change it out if you don't like the way it looked the first time. Just pop it back the other way. I could go through and turn it over and redo that. It's a pretty durable paper. It will put up with quite a lot of abuse. I do a lot of embossing on vellum, which is brittle, but this is not brittle, which is really very rewarding to do because of that. I do like working with vellum, but boy, it just, you can't put this much pressure on it at all. This is a much more elastic and much more forgiving paper. So I've got this side kind of pushed down more and then this side left up, which I don't know how well you can actually see that in the 2D world, but in reality, it made a difference.
So Wendy, how does your tool have the little cushy grip where someone
Oh, yeah.
commented on that?
Okay. All right. So in all fairness, this is the kind of tool that you guys got. And I do use these all the time, but I purposely wanted to show you these. If you go out and look for, you can find embossing tools for in the manicure section. People use them for doing those little dot manicure things. So you can find them there. You can find them in sewing supplies. You can find them in all kinds of places. But this is an embossing stylus that I like because it does have these little grippy things. But my absolute favorite one is made by the same people that make these scissors. It's the Fiskars. And it essentially looks just like this, only these deals are orange.
The question was remind us of the other patterns.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you can, gotcha. Thank you, Jerry. So you can do, you know, like I would just go off to the side and play around. You know, since I've been busted using the one with the cushy grip, I'll show, out of solidarity, I will use the non-cushy grip one. You could do lines like this, and then if you wanted, you could do it like this and make them sort of like cross hatches. That works as one way to do it. You could, you know, what I like to do is just take a look at the leaf, or if you prefer a real leaf, and try to get some sort of inspiration from it. Like maybe if you wanted to do lines that went like this, that were kind of like that kind of thing. So maybe reminiscent of some of the little fine veins and things that were in there. You could do something like that. So that's going to show up a little better on this side. Then of course there was the just kind of straight grass ones. I have done that sometimes for some things, but and I wasn't really feeling it for this particular one. And then you can do the concentric circles that makes it look sort of like wood grain or a typographical map, which will show better on the other side. For adhesive, like if you have multiple pieces that you want to glue together, I mostly tape. And so I do like that score double stick tape. That stuff's great. So, you know, you have to kind of experiment with what is going to work for you for that, but don't try to do like white glue or that any other of the traditional sort of tacky glues or anything like that. It just, I suppose because it's non-absorbent, it doesn't.
Right. I have used rubber cement, and that works. It's not a real permanent bond, but it does help to hold things together.
Oh, interesting.
So
It's not archival.
What's that?
It's not archival.
Yeah, so that's right.
Yeah.
So you know, it's not right. So that's the only bad part about it.
Go ahead and cut our things out. If you're using scissors, you can use scissors, use your knife if you're not. And you're just going to rough cut it to, and let's start with we'll start with the Gingko, just to let that one continue to be our sort of practice one, because it's a little more simple. And then just cut out right around your line. You can leave a little bit of extra room if you like, if you want to have it, let it have a little bit of a bevel, or you can go right on your line. It doesn't really matter. But when you're going around the top part of it, you might want to just kind of give your scissors a little bit of a wiggle back and forth. That'll kind of sell the idea that those little veins in there are actually coming along the edge like that. So then you can just get that cut out. I do love ginkgo leaves. They're one of my favorites. I like the way they look and I like the trees themselves. All right, so now this one, I've left a big edge, big margin around the petiole so that we would have some good parts to actually tweak down in there to get that to be more of like the shape of that would be. Now I'm left with this kind of large booble on the end here, which I think I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller, so you don't have to deal with that if you don't, or you can leave it big and you can punch it with a paper punch and tie it up on a string or something if you like to do that. And looking at mine, I think I should have come a little bit closer here, but I'm not going to go cut it off. I'm just going to bend that over a little bit, because if you bend over your edges, then it gives it a little bit more thickness and a little bit more structure, and it makes it look like what you're making it out of is a little bit thicker than it is, which I always like the way that looks, even though leaves themselves are really thin. I think when you're representing them this way, it's okay to maybe exaggerate the thickness a little bit. Now you've got a basic leaf. That what's really going to make this sing is if you take your fingers and give it a little bit of twist going one direction and then the other direction, and then you're going to have something that's got a little more shape to it. If you can get a little shape into it, that'll help it look a little bit more interesting to look at. So that's the ginkgo leaf. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the other one. We'll get that one cut out as well. Now this paper is a little bit thinner. As I'm cutting it, I can feel that it's a little bit thinner. And but none of these papers were the actual thin paper that Molly sells. These are all essentially in the thick category, right, Molly?
Yes. Yes. In the sheet, the brown sheet that has the like kind of reddish white stripes on the other side, that
Yep.
is our newest, and it's one of our thicker sheets that we have.
I love that one. I made some a nice oak leaf out of that. I really like that one.
Oh, good.
I say you in fact, when you originally were working with me on picking out which papers we were going to use, you said, is this one too thick? And I was like, there's no such thing as too thick.
Oh.
I think for doing the embossing, the thicker the better. And I'm going to show you in a minute why, because I've got some examples of some that I did with thin and thick. And
Yeah.
I just really
Do you have
think,
any advice about working with the thicker papers? Annie says it was very hard for her to work with.
Yeah.
that's
Well,
interesting.
If I can say, I mean, I've been working with that one. And you have to press just a little bit harder with it. I think it, versus the ones that are slightly thinner. That's the only thing I can suggest, unless I'm sure Wendy probably has a better suggestion.
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think it's just it's like the more material there is, the more thickness that you have, then the more opportunity you have to there's more product to push out. So you're able to get a deeper embossment, which is why I like that. So like this one to me is a little bit thinner, but it's going to be fine. But I think that the thicker ones give you a little bit more just a little bit more elevation in your embossment. Now, if any of you, I know some of you that are here tonight have taken my feather classes and maybe even some of my other leaf classes, you know that I really like putting a little rib into this. We didn't need to do this on the ginkgo leaf, but if you take your two thumbs and shove them together across that center rib right there, And when I do the feather classes, this would be the same exact thing going right up the shaft of the feather. It's the same thing. And you can even fold it in half if you want, and then press it back in. But that's going to give you not only the look of that, because it's going to cast shadows. See how it's casting the shadows, so you can see a little bit more of a definition of that, but it also gives it more rigidity. So like in the case of this, which is a little bit lighter weight paper, I can hold it like this and it will still hold up. Whereas I should have tried that with before I put the rib in there. I don't think it would have held up as well. So it gives you a little structure. And if you want, you can try and get fancy and do some of the other ones going up the side too. You don't have to just do the one, but for sure do that one up the middle. For your holiday table, whatever you celebrate, you might find at this time of year, it would be fun to have some autumn leaves kicking around. And so I like using them for all different ways on the table. I did hear Molly say that one of the people that she had talked to was talking about making these for a wedding, which I thought was a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
But
This is also really great paper to make flowers too, if you like to make paper flowers.
The question came up with what other things have I done with it? And so I just want to talk about that a little bit. This is the lightweight of the rock paper, and it actually looks better on camera than it does in real life. I like what it did back here, but I didn't think doing the feather worked that well in the lightweight. So that's why I particularly like the heavier weight. And then here I use the lightweight for the background embossment, and then a really, really heavyweight black for the raven. But it is definitely a very versatile thing. You can do paper sculpture of all kinds of things. This is a little in-person workshop that I'm going to be doing at the Prairie Art Gallery coming up in April. And so this one is using the techniques we talked about doing, cutting or with scissors or with a knife. You can also tear it. It has some wonderful qualities. I love doing clouds with torn rock paper. And then it has the embossing here. So these are just a few quick things that I have done with them. I have really, really enjoyed working with this paper and exploring some of the stuff it will do. And on Halloween, I made this, which I actually put in the jar with my, like I had with the leaves. So I had a brain in a jar, which was great fun. So you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. But I did do the jar in a smaller version so that I could bring it here tonight. And this one, I had a much larger one, which these leaves were for. So they're kind of poking out of here because they do magnify. If you get a jar that has that sort of fishbowl thing, it will magnify the leaves that go in the water. So it's kind of a fun little way to display them.
Wendy?
Yes.
Can you show the lettering that you showed before? Dave was asking.
I did think what we're talking about. You're talking about this guy here. I designed the lettering on a piece of paper and then flipped it over so it'd be backwards, and then embossed it into that. And then the word leaf is actually, this is two pieces of paper back to back here. Let me see if I can get it apart. Okay, so now you can see what's on the back. That's that same green I was just working with. It was red on one side. So I just did the letters individually and just did the individual letters and then stuck them, cut out the little spots and stuck them in there. But the thing I was thinking that you were talking about was the place cards, because one of the ideas that I had for the holiday table would be to take a person's name and a upside down. Take a person's name and put it in on the leaf or something. They could be like little place cards. Jerry, thank you so much for taking care of
Yes.
us tonight. This has been
Thanks.
fantastic. Do you want to maybe just give us like a quick little shout out for Gap?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wendy, and thank you, Molly, for like letting me sit in on this too. I'm very excited to try this afterwards. And I did want to invite everyone to check out GAP, the Guild of American Paper Cutters, and I'll put the address of the website in the chat. It's just papercutters.org, and you know, it's a great group, and it's how I met Wendy in the first place, and how I found out about rock paper also from other members of the guild. It's a very friendly group, and we also have a presence on Facebook and Instagram.
By all means, share your work. You can post photos of your leaves on Instagram also on Facebook. The hashtag is RockPaperLeaf. Just one leaf. It's not leaves. So you'll be getting snippets, which is, I know a lot of you are already subscribing to it, but that is my email that comes out on the full moon. So you'll be able to see everybody's work that I can possibly put in there. I will put into snippets. And if you don't want that, it's really easy to just unsubscribe. So don't worry about that. I think it's time for a quick gallery view, and then we can show everybody.
Absolutely.
I really want to thank you guys for coming. This has been fantastic. I've had a really, really good time. I hope you guys have had fun with it. Yay. Thank you for the applause. I appreciate that.
So great.
So this is super fun. I'm gonna have to look through these these beautiful faces. It's so nice to see you guys. I haven't been able to really look at you, so now I can see your leaves and see your faces. That's awesome. Thank you so much. This is super.
Thank you everybody for showing up. This is amazing. We are so thrilled with the response we've gotten from this.
Hasn't it been wonderful?
Yes, it's incredible.
We had no idea. Molly thought maybe 20 people.
Yeah. And we've only begun.
Yeah, exactly. It's very, I'm speechless. Share your leaves with us on Instagram, or I like to share them also on the Rock Paper profile. So I love to see what you do.
The thing is, how did you discover it, Molly?
Well, actually my mom is the inventor of it. so she it's been kind of a collaborative thing with her. She invented it, and then we started this business, and that's where
it's really made of powder rock or some type of thing.
Yeah, it's made from calcium carbonate.
Okay.
So yeah, it's our process is proprietary, but we do have the patents and all that on it. And it's I don't know, she made it for something else initially, which I can't really talk about that, but I saw it one day and I thought, well, geez, this could be a great this could be a great artist paper because of the different colors and just the different possibilities. And
a chemist?
She's well, she's not really a chemist, but she is a process engineer.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say she's a mad scientist.
Well, yeah, that's true. She is a mad scientist.
Yeah, by all means, check out our social media, both Molly's and mine, so that we can connect, because that's one of the beauties of these workshops, is that chance to connect.